Hello and welcome to episode 13 of the Monarch Metamorphosis Podcast. I'm Dr. Ryan Green, co-founder and medical director of Monarch Athletic Club. And today I have an incredible guest. I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name because she said it and I said that's not possible. But today the conversation is all around breath and I think it's super interesting. So we are honored to have Elsa from Breath Curriculum here today. I was so worried about your last name, I screwed up your first name, so I apologize about that. From one of my favorite countries in the world, Sweden. So, interestingly, as I was thinking about and prepping for this, I was thinking about a podcast I was listening to where they were just talking about simplicity of life. And one of the things that was said was, the Chinese word for nature means, translated, is that which happens unto itself. Basically meaning like trees are going to grow, wind's going to blow, sun's going to rise, sun's going to set. And they were talking about how when we translate that into the health space, your heart's going to beat, your hair's going to grow, your eyes are going to blink. You are going to take breaths no matter what. And so obviously, like, you know, I'll tell you about my journey here in a little bit, but I was thinking about it this weekend, especially as I was going to sleep, was like, I was trying to like think cognitively about every time I take a breath. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is way too much. Mm-hmm. And I got anxiety about it because I was like, damn, if I had to think about every time that I need to take a breath, you know, I would go insane because there's too many other things going on. So the interesting thing with breath, and I've been on my, I guess you could call it a spiritual journey, definitely a different course than where I had been up until about 8 or 9 years ago. And maybe it's just because we're in LA, but like breath work, like it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. Do you do breath work? Where do you go to do whatever? And to be honest, like, it is not my favorite thing to do because it's work. And I'm just like, I do so much shit throughout the day. Like, the last thing I want to do is go and like, you know, force myself to breathe in this beautiful, and every time that I do it, once I actually get myself there, it's a beautiful experience. But that's just one aspect of breathing. So, hopefully from today, people that are listening can take something from this. And I'm excited to learn because this is what you do on a daily basis. Like when I did my integrative medicine fellowship, we talked about box breathing. We talked about 4-7-8 breathing. And like, you can know it, but actually like practicing it when you need it. And you told a story before we started filming about like working with your kids' soccer/football program. First of all, between like 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, which is wild that they're getting up that early, which is great for them. It's just like every pro athlete knows, and you talk about like the Jordans, the LeBrons, maybe less Jordan because they may not have known as much about it back then, but like when they're standing at the free throw line and they have a lot of pressure, like they have practiced the self-regulating breathing techniques that allow them to calm the noise and things like that. So, I'm super excited to learn more about your practice and things that people listening can just do on a daily basis. Because as of late, it's definitely something that's been top of mind for me. And other than sleeping, probably the most important thing that we can do, especially from a nervous system standpoint. So that all being said, fill me in. I know where you're from, Sweden, but like, how did you get into this idea of breath work, breath curriculum, which is your concept? Like, how did you get here?
So I'm from Sweden, then I moved to London, lived there for 6 years. And then 7 years ago, I moved to LA. Yeah. My husband got a job here. And in the beginning, as everyone who's not from here, they know the struggle about visa and staying here and making sure we can work legally, etc. So when I moved here, I couldn't work in the beginning. So I was like, okay, I'm forced not to work. What should I do with this time? Because it will probably never come again that you're like forced to take a break and think about what you really want to do. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm into yoga. I want to know more about it just for myself. So I did a yoga teacher training, and then I was thinking about it as your driver's license. If you take your driver's license and you never drive, and someone asks you a year after, can you drive me here? I can't drive.
Right.
So I was thinking the same with the yoga. If I don't practice now being a yoga teacher, if someone asks me, can you do a yoga class? I won't be able to do it. So I forced myself to teach yoga, even though I didn't learn for that reason.
Yeah.
So I started teaching yoga on the beach in Venice and at a private club. And then I was like, what else can I learn? So I did a lot of different courses. I did a very interesting course from Yale, which is called The Science of Well-Being. You learn all about the studies which are done on like what actually works to improve our well-being. And then I came across breathing. I heard an interview with James Nestor. He wrote the book Breath, The New Science of Lost Art. And everything he said, I was like, I didn't know this. I didn't know that you were supposed to breathe through the nose, not the mouth. And yes, I've heard belly breathing my whole life, but no one's told me why. So I'm breathing up into my chest. It seems to work fine. But he explained all the like history, the science, what happens in the body when we breathe in different ways, how a lot of us are dysfunctional breathers, and how big of an impact it can have on anxiety. So I was like, okay, we have this tool that is always with us. It's free. It's always available, that can reduce stress in real time and then have an impact on long-term anxiety. So I was thinking, I have so many people around me that suffers from anxiety, and if they can just try this, or if I can try it and it works for me and it works for people in studies and everything, it's worth exploring. So same there, I wanted to take a course just to learn for myself. And then when I finished this breath coach course, I went to a party. I've told this story so many times. And then I told someone, I just finished a breath coach course. And then someone overheard, and she was like, oh, did you finish? Are you a breathwork coach? And in my head, I was like, no, it's just for myself. And then I just felt my head going,
Nice.
And then she was like, oh my God, I just read a book by James Nestor. It's the same book that got me into breathing. And she was like, I know I'm breathing wrong, but I don't know how to breathe right. Are you taking on clients? And then I was like, not at all in my head, but I was like, keep nodding. She was like, okay, can we start tomorrow? And I was like, just going to go home and do the part in the course that is about clients, which I just like skipped because I was like, this is just for me. So anyways, and at the same time, I got my work permits.
Amazing.
So I had her as my first client. I just forced myself. I'm like, just try it, just do it. And my husband was like, we're in LA, you can do anything here.
Of course.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then she just got so many benefits from just changing simple things in her daily breathing that made her tell all her friends. So all of a sudden I was in business, and it was just happened organically. And then
amazing.
There were so many things that happened after that. My husband worked in advertisement, and then COVID came, and then, it opened the mind of people and like, what am I actually doing with my life? So he took an 180 and started a restaurant. And
what restaurant?
It's called Market.
Oh, nice.
It's in Venice.
Yeah.
It's under the Venice sign almost. You know?
Yeah, of
cool.
course. Yeah.
So he opened that one with his business partner, Nick. And the day, like when they got access to the space, their neighbors who were next door came by and were like, we are your neighbors. We just want to say hi. What's going on in here? Are you opening a restaurant? And they were like, yes. And they told Nick and Arvid, my husband, that they are a breathwork studio, which is like literally next door, which was open. So
Unreal.
Nick told them, he was like, oh, Arvid's wife is a breathwork coach. The day after I met them for a coffee, they were looking for someone who knew like the science behind what they were doing. Started with them, ended up full-time, and all of a sudden I was working full-time at one of the coolest studios in LA, I thought, breathwork wise. And I was like, I didn't even know this was a thing 6 months ago. I didn't even know breathing was a thing, and now I'm working with it full-time. So
it's unbelievable.
That's like how the story
First of all,
evolved.
If y'all are listening, anyone who's listening who does not believe the universe literally sets up synchronicities, and all you have to do is just open your eyes, open your ears, and just like recognize that everything is being like, it's those kind of stories where I'm just like, you were meant to do this, which is insane. So thank you for saying yes, because you are clearly answering your calling.
And before that, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I worked in like ops, and I worked with social media at an agency, and I worked with different things. And I was like, I'm so jealous that people know their path. Like
100%.
Arvid, my husband, he knew that he was going to work with advertisement or film. And maybe you knew that you were going to work in the medical industry. And I was like, that's so nice when people know. And then this like fell into my lap, and I was like, this is it.
Yeah.
I was like, yoga, it's already very saturated. I didn't feel home there.
Yeah.
But this is like something that is free. You always have it with you. And it's more and more people are starting to realize how important breathing is. And it's not just that you have to spend like 30 minutes, as you were saying in the beginning. You don't really have to spend extra time breathing because you already breathe through everything you do. So if you can add in breathwork practice while you're exercising, maybe you're going for a run, or maybe you're just going for a walk, or while you're watching TV, you can do breathing practice, or while you're in bed, or while you're doing the dishes. You know, you can tweak your breath during the day so that you become a better breather.
Sure. So I think that's a good pivot point, because to what I said previously, when I was thinking about breath work, on your back, music playing, someone's kind of guiding you through the rhythm, belly, chest, out, belly, chest.
Fast breathing, mouth breathing often.
You got people yelling, and then there's a lot of, and by the way, like my partner practices Kundalini activation work, Kundalini yoga. So like, I understand it, but like whenever I've been in those spaces, I've been like, one is, like I said, it's a lot of work, but two, it's like there's a lot of things happening emotionally around, because when you get into breathwork practice, it can unlock emotions and trauma and things like that, which is beautiful. They need to be released. I totally in alignment. But for me, it's always been, it's like, I know it's not performative, but I'm also like, I just need something quiet where I can check in with myself and my nervous system, because I'm carrying a lot. So you talk a lot about functional breathing. Help me understand like how you approach it compared to just someone signs up on ClassPass for a breathwork class. They go in, lay on a mat, and then they're just, ripping through. Like, how do you approach it differently?
So I often say, like, I teach people how to breathe before and after one of those classes. Because when you go into a typical breathwork class, you deliberately hyperventilate, and you do all the things that you're not supposed to do in terms of breathing on a daily basis. It's fine that you do it there because you do it deliberately, and you do it during a short period of time. 30 minutes to 2 hours maximum.
2 hours?
The holotropic
get out of here.
The full-on practices.
If you last for 2 hours, I'm out.
Yeah. So that's what I do. I focus on the breathing that happens the rest of the 23 hours of the hour or of the day. And I approach it in terms of like how I work with people. I work one-on-one. I have online courses for people to learn and practice. I have a certificate for coaches who want to apply functional breathing on top of what they're already doing. They can be yoga teachers, or they can be physical coaches, or they can be life coaches. So it's very like a wide practice that you can apply on top of everything else, really. So what I do is, and what I think is very important, and what I also think is fun, is to explain the science and what happens in the body when you do a breathing practice.
Yeah.
Because you can tell someone, again, I've heard my whole life, breathe through your belly. No one told me why. So I was breathing in my chest, or I didn't think about how I was breathing. And then when I learned exactly the reasons why and what happens in the body and what can happen if you don't do it, the risks of not breathing properly, then it got me motivated. So that's what I try. That's how I try to approach it. I try to make sure they understand why they're doing a specific technique or why they're tweaking their daily breath. And then we practice. I make sure they understand it. I make sure they like the practice, because often when people check in with their breath, as you mentioned before, you felt a little anxious because it was just people who have dysfunctional breathing or who have a lot of anxiety or stress. They often think it's quite stressful to check in with their daily breath or with a natural breath, because it's probably a little fast or a little too much up into the chest. So you get anxious from checking in, or you feel anxious from doing box breath, for example. Maybe people have, that's the most common thing people practice. People talk about the box breath. but it can be very uncomfortable for people who do maybe a too slow box, and it's like holding for too long or breathing out for too long. So they're like, breathing is not for me. It's uncomfortable. I got a panic attack from just breathing, So it's very important to find the right practice for that person. So they like it, so they understand why it might be a little uncomfortable and that that's a good thing. So, it's not just like try one practice, didn't work. Okay, move on to the next thing. It's more like find the right practice for you. And you need to understand why it works so that you're motivated to do it. I can talk about it forever.
No, I get it. And it's like the same thing that we encounter here with Monarch, which is like the best plan for you is the one that you can stick with. And like when I've been in a yoga class or whatever, like sometimes when people are like, we're going to start with a breath, I've noticed, I'm like, damn, these people can breathe in for a very long time and then they can breathe out for a very long time. And I've had that thought, which is like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't they count to 8? And I'm like, I'm good at count 6. Like, what am I doing wrong here? And then I'm like, oh shit, this is, you spiral.
And if you think about that picture, if people picturing in their head, 2 people at a yoga session, one is like panting through their mouth and one is like breathing very gently, softly through their nose. Who do you think is the most fit for that class?
Correct. Yeah.
It's very simple.
Totally.
It's like, the nose breather, the slow breather.
Yeah.
Because they have practiced their breath, not just the yoga movement. They've practiced their breath too. So a lot of people think like, I'm exercising. I'm practicing my breath every time I exercise. No, you're probably over breathing. You're probably breathing a little dysfunctional when you exercise, which means you're not improving your breath rate. So it's the breath on top of the exercise that can improve your performance, for example.
What are the most common things that people come to you for, other than anxiety? Because I'm sure that's everywhere.
Yeah.
What are let's take anxiety out of it, but other than that, like what are the most common things people have, may not go or come to you for to be treated?
Yeah. So anxiety, people come for anxiety, but then they realize something else. They're like, I didn't know this was going to alleviate my asthma symptoms. They're like, you know what? I haven't used my inhaler since I started breathing practice with you. And they didn't see the connection between functional breathing and their asthma symptoms. So that's pretty remarkable, but they can stop using their asthma medication from just learning how to breathe functionally.
Where do you think the transition occurs in terms of life, right? Because there's a shift that seems to be happening, whether it's called primal movement or Miratia talks about kind of regressing back into the infantile stage where like you knew how to squat. If you can, and you have kids, like they squat very easily, they bend over, they do all that kind of stuff. But if you look at a child, like, and we learned this in medicine, like you can tell what's happening by, the belly breath, or are they having to use their accessory muscles of inspiration, which they shouldn't be using? Where do you think where do you think we shifted going from that innate genetic intelligence, which we have? Like, is it purity? Is it, have you ever thought about that? Which is like, what was the thing that shifted us from breathing from here, using our diaphragm, to going up and then, using all that kind of muscle? I don't know. You may not have an answer, but like clearly it happened at some point. So
where did we forget?
Where did we forget? Exactly.
That's such a good question. From just speculating and from like hearing people talk about it, because I obviously haven't looked at it with personal well developing, but it could be when we start to become aware of how we look. We start to pull in our belly because someone maybe pointed us in the belly and said we were fat or something, and we squeeze in our belly to look more attractive. So then if we squeeze in our belly, we don't make room for lungs to expand properly, so we force the breath up, which you suggested, for example. We start to sit a lot when we start at school, which leads a lot of us hunched forward. Again, we're not utilizing the diaphragm properly, so we force the breath up into the chest. What other reasons why we forgot to breathe? We spent too much time indoors, maybe in poor ventilated rooms, which means we're breathing in each other's breath, which is not healthy. It's less oxygen, more carbon dioxide. And
just bad breath in general.
Yes, exactly.
And also we have clothes. We're inside in heated rooms, which makes us breathe faster. So there we already chest breathing and we become fast breathers. And then we don't chew our food properly. So if you think back to 300,000 years ago when we were chewing everything that was raw in the nature, we had to use our muscles in our jaw. And now everything is processed. If it's not processed, it's still very soft food like avocado, yogurt, all those things. We even just swallow our food through smoothies, healthy smoothies. So that being said, we don't chew enough, which makes our jaws small, which makes our mouth small, which makes not enough room for our teeth. They grow crooked because it's not enough space. And then our airways grow narrow. So our mouth starts to hang open when we sleep or when we focus, and we become mouth breathers. And that can shape our whole face. Our mouth is set back, and it has this name adenoid face, which comes from like irritated adenoids, I think, which makes us mouth breathe, which changes the whole face, which makes us bad breathers because we're struggling with breathing. So somewhere there when we're kids, or maybe when we're adults, there was a story about this boy who got an animal and he was allergic to the animal. So he looked perfect, like he was a very pretty boy. And then he got this animal, he got allergic, he started to mouth breathe because he was blocked nose. He didn't know it. And after a few years, you see his full face change.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Have you seen facial structure shifts even in the last couple of years with any of your clients, or is it just, have you had enough time to...
A little. Yeah. They say that they see it. So it's like, when we're adults, you need a lot to change your face. Like you might need to do surgery, or you might need to like practice your chewing muscles. We've seen a lot of people like online, they have developed their jaw muscles, so they look more like clear. So that's something you can change. Yeah, but especially with kids, because when the kids are young, or for kids, you have more development. Like that's when you set the structure of your face. So that's especially when you're kids. You can
Interesting. Speaking of kids, you mentioned, like I alluded to before, you've been working with your son.
No, it's a soccer team.
Just a soccer team, okay. Of teens, early in the morning, working on breathing techniques. How has that been received, especially for like kids, as you alluded to, like maybe it's not cool, whatever that looks like. How's the experience been, especially with the youth? Because, I think one of the things we learned here is a lot of people who are a part of our ecosystem are incredibly successful, which means the way they've done things has allowed them to open a lot of doors, to have a lot of resources. It's hard, unless there's crisis, to be like, wait, what do you mean I'm doing it incorrectly? I've gotten to working out. Clearly doing okay. So I've felt for a long period of time, and it is something that will happen down the road, like we need to get to kids as they're in that developmental stage to help them move better, eat better, focus on all the other things. So what's that experience been like with the younger demographic in terms of like, not only just doing it and not being there, being like, hey, I'm just doing this because my coach told me that I have to do it, but actually like implementing it, adopting it. What's that experience been like?
So this group that I saw this morning, they're a great group of kids. They're very like, oh, this was so interesting. And very much like, I try to make them come up with situations when they feel angry, when they feel irritated, when they feel anxious or whatever, so they can like jump into those situations. And for example, that's when their heart rate goes up. And if they can learn this tool, this technique to downregulate or to lower their heart rate, they feel the shift. So one thing is practicing with the kids, so they feel the effect straight away. They're like, oh, I feel so calm, I feel so relaxed, and that's a positive thing. And then they hopefully remember that, and they want to do it again because they felt so calm. And then also integrating it with the parents. I was like, tell your parents when they are angry or nervous or stressed next time, breathe together. Now you have these breathing practices that you can do together. But so not just correcting their daily breathing, but also giving them breathwork practices that they can do in different situations that they then practice, and then they realize they health, and then they are more motivated to do that. But it's a little harder with kids. You can't do like a 1 hour session and they will not be there at all. So short practices, a lot of like feeling, touching, feeling the heartbeat, feeling their breath, a lot of practical things.
Do you find, I think LA specifically is kind of like an echo chamber where you have Venice, Santa Monica, you got the West Side, which is an energy of its own, or you have LA in general. Everyone's talking about this. Everyone's talking about hormones, peptides, growth work, plant medicine. I'm almost like saturated. It's, although this is what I do, it seems like this is all everyone's talking about. And then I remember my roots, which I don't know if people do this in Sweden where you're from, but like in the Midwest, things are starting to trickle in terms of what we've been immersed in for the last decade. So do you find that most people that you work with are extremely motivated to do this, which is why they're working with you? Or do you tend to gather people that are, kind of interested, that they're like, I want to try this out? Or, are most people like, hey, I've been seeking a breathwork coach or whatever? Because the analogy is kind of like people know that they need to exercise, and there's a difference between being interested in it and being committed to it. And exercise is easy because you get the endorphins, you get the sweat. Anyone knows, like, regardless of how healthy you are, after 45 to 60 minutes, you do feel better. So, like, has that been a challenge, kind of getting people who aren't, like, already aligned, like, I need to do this breathwork stuff? I'd be interested in, from a business thing.
Yeah, so when people reach out for one-on-one coaching, they are really looking for a solution. Either they're, like, at the bottom, they're so stressed, anxious, their nervous system is so dysregulated, so they can't do normal things that healthy people can do, like cook dinner or go for a run or go for a walk or even do exercise. They are too imbalanced, so they want to try everything, or they have heard about it. Like my first client, she heard, oh, something is wrong, and they start to observe their own breath, and they realize, oh my god, this is worse than I thought. So they are very motivated to come and learn and think better. And then if you go to a group session, they're more like curious. Oh, I've heard about breathwork and never tried it. I'll come to a group session. And then what they learn from there is like, oh, I didn't realize this could feel that good, or I could feel that relaxed. Or some people come to my classes and they're like, I haven't been this relaxed, and they can't remember because they haven't taken a moment to just dial down. And so that's how people come in. But the hardest part is when people, they haven't tried it. They're not really they think they're healthy enough, and they don't understand the impact it can have, because breathing is automatic most of the time, or not all the time if you don't take control of it. And you have practiced your whole life, so they find it hard to see that can breath, something so easy as breathing, have that big of an impact on our health. And then when I tell them, oh, we're not perfectly breathers just because we've been practicing our whole life, because these different reasons, because we sit too much, tight clothes, indoors, chewing, etc. And then they realize, oh, okay, just because we do it naturally doesn't mean we do it perfectly. And then again, applying the science, giving examples, who's using it in the sports performance scene, who's using it, the Navy SEALs when they're doing, like those groups who are only settling for the best, the most optimal, like the most efficient tools, they sign up for breathing. The Navy SEALs, the athletes, the pro athletes, they don't have time for something that doesn't work and isn't efficient, but they do this. They have realized what big impact it really can put on top of everything else they do. You can't just skip exercise, skip what you eat, and skip sleep and think that breathing is going to fix all your problems. Breathing is part of the core, benchmarks for health.
That's why I would say we do everything for a reason, because everything matters. I think we've reduced, isolated, separated, made health a journey of 1,000 different things, which is complicated. You're right. So how can we put this all together and realize literally everything is important? There's no wasted anything in the human body. Before we wrap, and my final question, where can people find you if they want to work with you in person, if they want to find you virtually? What are the best ways to reach out to you?
And my company is called breathcurriculum.com. So you can find me there or on Instagram at breathcurriculum. That's the easiest way. Send me a just ask your questions. What's that?
Do you in person stuff?
And no, at the moment, it's more private course, so person. But I have the online courses, which anyone can take. You learn the basics, you learn the science, always paired with the practice. So yeah, and there's a breathing library. If you just want to like fall asleep, you can plug in the headphones and fall asleep too.
Brilliant. Yeah, I have some of your patients that you. Whether you're talking with one this morning. I always ask because you kind of alluded to it, which was, I think, COVID, AI, what have you. There is a shift that is occurring where people are going to have to really face themselves in the sense of like, why did you come here? It wasn't just to do advertising, or maybe it was because you're sharing something. But I think most people just occupy their time because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do. And you alluded to it saying like, you always were looking for that something that really lit you up, stoked your fire. And we all have it. And I hope everyone finds it. I think the gift is you got. That being said, I also think it is your responsibility, if you have found that flame, to take a breath, to share with the world. So here's just came to me.
Okay.
By the time you take your last breath, pun intended, what do you hope to leave behind? What impact do you hope to have with this breath work, or just, your work in general? You thought?
I hope that people can understand the impact that every single breath you take have on your body. Because if you take it in a stressful chest breathing, it sends signals to your stressful signals to your brain. If you take it in a functional way, it sends calming signals to your brain. And it's when we are calm that our nervous system is regulated and that most of your bodily functions work properly. So that's when you can recover. That's when you can, produce growth hormones. That's when you can build your muscles. That's when you can calm your brain. So if people just learn some techniques and understand, connect with their breath, and just like feel the benefits of it, try it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I have a ton of ideas for how we can integrate that within our community specifically. So that's one topic. But yeah, other than, I tell people all the time, there's basically three things that you need to exist. You need to sleep, you need to eat, then you need to breathe. And most people think about the first two, to definitely don't think about the third. So I'm grateful for you and the work that you do. Grateful for you guys for being here for episode 13 of the Monarch Metamorphosis Podcast. And until then, go find Elsa, because y'all need a book.